In this installment, a follow-up on that unrecoverable absence I worried over in my last episode, I make good on promises to revisit a couple of cool series I enjoyed while they were on. I encountered what appears to have been the 1.0 version of this project, and in what I've been watching, just in time for Christmas, Porgs. Welcome to the show.
He doesn't have that on video, does he? We'll find out together on video, Fuzzy.
Starting out with a little old business.
Taking care of some old business.
My Friday night feature from last time, the 3-part sci-fi miniseries Tin Man, opened onto some hand-wringing commentary on what to do about missing media. Well, I'd had the first episode on one disc, and the last 20 minutes or so the third episode on the next disc, and no idea what could have happened to the rest of it in between. Well, no worries, all of the episodes turned up soon enough and not too far away. As I suspected, the tape simply got transferred out of order, especially the third episode, which is broken out over 3 discs, and the whole series is split up across 7 discs in my collection. I may have to Frankendisc that thing sometime just on principle. As for being transferred out of order, it didn't happen a lot, but it was hardly unheard of. The situation simply gave me an opportunity to explore the concept of completion and my options in an uncertain world.
Friday night feature.
Such is the one I live with in regards to Samantha Who and episode 9 of season 1 titled, ominously enough, The Breakup. A while ago, in episode 7 of this podcast, I suggested I'd have more to say about this show as I ran into more episodes of it. As it happens, while I thought it was a sweet, quirky little show, I don't seem to have been able to have recorded it too often. So far, I think I've only encountered like 3 episodes in my catalog listing. The pilot episode, the 6th episode with the hypnotherapist, and this week's, where title character Samantha Newley falls in love. Sam, played beautifully by Christina Applegate, had some kind of horrific hit-and-run accident that left her in a coma for 8 days, from which she emerged with full retrograde amnesia. She walks back into her family, her friends, and her life like nothing happened, except that she is continually surprised to learn new and troubling things about what kind of a person she was before the bonk to her noggin. Her sweet friend, Dina, played by Melissa McCarthy, is not a person Sam would have spent any time with before the accident. Her mother, played by Jean Smart, has been trying to figure out ways to capitalize on this accident and amnesia thing, and her friend Andrea, played by Jennifer Esposito, is basically some externalized id and running commentary on how Sam would be reacting to everything in her life if she hadn't had the accident. In episode 9, The Breakup, Sam has been dating Kevin, a contractor, for a couple of weeks, and things have been going very well. Top of the episode, he has sent roses to her office, and they've decided to spend a little time exploring what kind of person Sam has been to work for. Her assistant, Tracy, runs in, frantic, late because she had to drive all over town to find the coffee that Sam likes. Please don't beat her again. And when she sees the baby's breath at Sam's flowers, she tears it out. Garbage flowers! She screams. Sam assures her no. It's okay, please. She's not that person anymore. Try to be more like girlfriends than boss-employee. Does a girlfriend hit harder than a boss? Tracy wonders, still scared that Sam will go after her bangs with the scissors. Sam pulls her in for a hug, which she accepts, still wild-eyed with fear, but takes her up on being more girlfriend than employee. Back to Kevin, Dina is excited Sam's relationship is progressing so well. For her part, Andrea is pretty sure he's gay because they've been going out for 2 weeks and haven't gotten physical yet. Cut to the next scene and he's more or less demonstrated that he's not gay. Samantha calls Dina and declares that she is in love. Kevin's the first man she's made love with since the accident, so from her point of reference, he's the first man she's ever had sex with, and she is head over heels. What happens next is a little hard to watch. Within a couple of nights of this raw, unbridled passion, Samantha is figuring out ways she could move in with him. Maybe she could have a drawer where she could keep a few things. Or how about a full suitcase with everything she owns? And he breaks up with her. Cut to a drunken girls' night in, sing-along to Gloria Gaynor's I Will Survive on replay, and an oh my god realization that she'd never told Todd, her ex, who anyway is currently moving on in his relationship with someone else, that she loved him. She stands in the street shouting up at the high-rise he's staying in. Hers, if I'm remembering, although she's the one who moved out. And when she gets in, she tells him that she loved him. Not now, but the person she was before the accident did love him. But she doesn't now, but she did. Which declaration of undying ambivalence his poker night buddies find to be hilarious. From this bittersweet resolve, we transition to Tracy, who has completely accepted this whole girlfriends thing, giving herself a pedicure at her desk. Samantha realizes she needs to be the boss in this situation, and she needs Tracy to hop to and be her employee. But while, yes, she needs to behave as a professional, Samantha will try to be more of a human being towards her, saying things like please and thank you, and going from there. So that was Samantha Who. A second title I promised to go into a little more depth on, also in episode 7 of this podcast, was Pushing Daisies, which I know I've commented on elsewhere, but when I brought in season 1, episode 9, I knew this was the right one to pull up for exploration. The facts were these. At the end of season 1, episode 8, on disc 361 at 1 hour, 18 minutes, and 28 seconds, Ned the Pie Maker told Charlotte Charles, also known as Chuck, that he was the one who had killed her father. Indeed he had, or rather the gift he'd received, from no one in particular. The one that was responsible for bringing his mother back to life had in exchange exacted the life of Chuck's father. Ned was 9 years, 27 weeks, 6 days, and 3 minutes old. His mother, having died from a brain aneurysm while baking a pie, was miraculously alive again after Ned touched her. And after 1 minute's revitalization, their neighbor, Charlotte Charles, the girl known as Chuck, lost her father, and then, with a kiss goodnight, Ned's mother was dead again, never to be revived. That's how this gift worked. One touch, alive again, and second touch, dead again, this time forever, with another nearby life taken in exchange if the second touch came more than a minute later than the first. After their tragic losses, Ned moved and lost track of Chuck until he learned years later that Chuck had died while taking a world cruise. He tracked her down and touched her so as to discover who had killed her, but having lost her once, he could not bring himself to touch her again. He was so in love. She was in love with him too, but one point of tension that tracked from the pilot episode to this very moment was Ned's guilt for having caused her grief and pain. As the show's narrator asserted, in Chuck's life, her father wasn't just a shining star, he was a pocket universe full of stars, and when he died, all the stars went out. So when Ned revealed that he was at the nuclear core of that loss, Chuck needed some time to process, and took all of Season 1, Episode 9, titled Corpsicle, to do so. While she avoided the pie maker, he and private investigator Emerson Codd tracked down who was responsible for murdering insurance adjusters and leaving them in snowmen. The episode reeled from the bombshell revelation viewers had been anticipating for weeks at this point, but one unintended consequence in an entire series of them tracked from pie-hole waitress Olive Snook rather than Charlotte Charles, baking the pear and apple pie with Gruyere cheese baked into the crust and dosed, or rather overdosed, with unprescribed homeopathic mood enhancers with which Chuck had been dosing her aunts to help them overcome their social anxiety and depression after her death. Under the influence of Olive's drug-induced pie and in the throes of homeopathic hallucinations, Chuck's Aunt Lily reveals that she is, in fact, Chuck's mother. In the words of Marilu Henner's Belinda Blair, well, that's something I didn't know. That's probably one of the best reveals I've ever encountered. Brilliant storytelling. When you've been building up to a big reveal for several episodes, viewers have had nothing but time to process in our minds all the possible reactions, how it's going to play out, what's going to happen next, and indeed, Pushing Daisies did not disappoint. Rather, pulling the trigger on the foreseeable aftermath of Chuck's reaction and using it to set the stage for an even bigger bombshell that no one's been anticipating. Well played, show creator Brian Fuller. Despite having watched and loved this series from the beginning, I'd actually forgotten this particular plot twist, and cannot wait to see how it played out in subsequent episodes.
Diving into the classic collection.
One Christmas present to ourselves was a new computer, which has been taking some time and attention away from this project in terms of setting up and file transfer, and it's not quite there yet, but I'm hoping to use for processing this podcast because it's promising me some expanded audio options I can't wait to explore once I get a chance. When transferring files from one machine to another, you encounter a lot of files you'd forgotten. I had hundreds of gigs of old photos and videos, some from more than a decade ago, stored away and archived because of them taking up too much space on my laptop, that a terabyte of space let me reunite with. But along with my classic collection itself, it seems like I'd made some past attempts at cataloging this collection when it was all still on VHS tapes. I found a file about 24 pages long where I'd cataloged over 100 of these things, apparently before or even while I'd started digitizing them. This was a bit of a surprise, but only in that I'd gotten that far. Even at 123 tapes, when I'd started that latest work in 2006, that was just my most recent attempt to impose order on a vast and unwieldy media collection. I had invested hours in cataloging what in earlier attempts were much smaller, seemingly more manageable numbers of videotapes. I still have a folder stuffed full of past attempts, printouts, longhand, notepads, tracking where what specific show, concert, or video could be found on what was slowly becoming hundreds of VHS videotapes. When I was able to start digitizing this mess, I initially tacked it to the end of the VHS catalog, but soon realized it would work better as its own file. It was kind of cool to run into this listing because while I've been working through these discs and cataloging them, I've actually encountered some of these shows once again and see where they'd transferred as I'd recorded them once before when they were VHS tapes. This doesn't necessarily help me find anything, since none of these discs were transferred in any specific order. No past listing of shows will help me find them now. But it's a testament to past efforts I've made to track what media I've collected and to find it again should I need to. So this current effort is simply the latest, but also, I'd argue, the most effective, since once something is cataloged, it's pretty easily called up and run to earth. Shows I've run to earth most recently include the missing portions of the Tin Man miniseries they ran on Sci-Fi, which I was happy to encounter and look forward to watching again once I get a chance to compile that Frankendisc. I encountered a high-energy installment of NBC's Life in which Detective Charlie Cruz uncovers police corruption and the detail who had put him away. I ran into a few more episodes of The Universe on the History Channel, exploring among other topics the mysteries of the moon, black holes, and what we've managed to learn about our home galaxy, the Milky Way. And I took the opportunity to watch a good portion of ABC's presentation of Lemony Snicket's A Series of Unfortunate Events, a somber children's story to say the least, albeit beautifully photographed and presented with exactly the right amount of dark. Jim Carrey found just the right level of disturbing for this piece, and Meryl Streep was all but unrecognizable as something like a marshmallow under a pile of black curtains. The stylized animated closing titles were outstanding, and I found the piece overall to be quite entertaining. Crowdsourcing! Before I move on, a follow-up on a past crowdsourcing puzzle, Exhibit C, that second or so of establishment shot in the French Quarter of New Orleans in Disc 344. Ever since recording episode 12, I felt like I dismissed too readily the possibility that the scene could have been from the Man in the Morgue, New Orleans episode of Bones, but never actually went back to Disc 224 to see maybe if that, unlikely as it seemed logically when I made the recording, might actually have been the source of that video. Well, when I pulled up Disc 224, the first minute or so was commercials and promos for other Fox shows, which did not augur well for that being the source of the screenshot. If the shot was not at the very beginning of a new tape, I reasoned the position was bad for it to be the half second or so at the beginning of the Family Guy Lois Kills Stewie episode resume. Stranger things have happened, however, so I zipped through the rest of the episode, and indeed this was a somber installment, shot mostly in dark blues and grays. Along with a call to action for assistance at the end, the writing and presentation throughout were sensitive to a city suffering the aftermath of Hurricanes Katrina and Rita, and at no point were our heroes wandering through a sunny esplanade filled with a crowd of happy people celebrating the New Orleans Saints in the French Quarter of the Big Easy. Now, this does not mean it's absolutely from K-ville, as I'd surmised. It just means that I've at least narrowed it down as being not from Bones. As you were.
Current collection.
Nothing so much stands out about my current collection. I catalog nearly a score of supernaturals, a few more Faulty Towers, which I'm certain I have all of them in my classic collection somewhere or other, but right now these are definitely easier to find. I closed out my collection of Archers and Brockmeyers, and got a little further down the road with the third season of Better Call Saul, which I do hope they re-air seasons 1 and 2 again at some point, because I never got those recorded, and they're quite enjoyable. They might actually be available on demand as we speak. As of this moment, I haven't gone so far as to look. I saved the episode of The Family Guy where apparently Peter Griffin made a large enough donation at a sperm bank to father dozens of offspring, all of whom look more like him than his children with Lois, and apparently this is canon now. Meg has been replaced with a clone for reasons. Of course, we've also seen Meg with an exposed brain, and Meg ejected from a space shuttle into space, so I really don't know how many of these otherwise pointless side storylines can be believed. I see where I've recorded the TNT presentation of Melissa McCarthy and Tammy, the FX presentation of Marvel's The Avengers, Sci-Fi's fascinating time travel exploration of Source Code, and Spike TV's stirring biopic of the late Heath Ledger from earlier this year called I Am Heath Ledger. Also, I came to a realization regarding the President's Show that I had not been able to pursue as yet. When TV.com listed the episodes, the title they chose was the guest interviewed by the title character, portrayed by star and show creator Anthony Adamanowicz in the Mar-a-Lago segment, which may well be the official episode title, but is useless in terms of search and organization. So once I get a chance, I'd like to go back in, pull them up, and retitle them in my catalog according to the themes they chose for these episodes. Each episode had a theme, announced at the top of the production, and I feel like that's going to be a better choice in helping me search out and differentiate one episode from another.
What I've been watching.
In what I've been watching, well, I've got to say it, Episode 8, The Last Jedi, the latest release from the Star Wars franchise, was one hell of a ride. I was able to take it in opening weekend, and I don't really have a good enough handle on the show to track where they're going with all this, but I do agree it was about time they talked about what the heck the nature of the Force is, and how... Is this spoilers? If this is spoilers, this is pretty much the rest of what I'll be talking about for this installment. So if you're in spoiler avoidance mode, go see it. I absolutely can tell you that it's worth it. And come back later. Otherwise, yeah, talking about the nature of the Force and how the untrained daughter of randonanimous junk scavengers can just be wielding it. Or, more to the point, not talking about that. Rey does get some training from no less a title character than Luke, and also BT dubs, turns out he's not the last. But unless she sends it back in time to Episode 7, she had a good enough handle on it to do some serious damage just from picking up his lightsaber. The island was neat with its storehouse of the books of the Jedi, its docile cow-like creatures, and oh my, yes, those adorable furry little birds I guess are called porgs, although I don't remember hearing anyone name them. No one called them anything. I guess Chewie might have called them delicious. He's a bit hard to understand sometimes. I liked the Rebels' standoff with the Empire. I liked Snoke's confrontation with Hux at the beginning, and I was mesmerized by Rey's confrontation with Kylo Ren and Snoke at the Imperial Guard in his chambers. As others have noted, the B-story in the casino didn't add much, but there was also some useful illustration of people who profit from wars by selling to both sides. Also, my mate Ralph suggested they were probably laying in some backstory with the stable hands at the end, so that was legitimate. And I hate to be that guy, but the bomb deployment at the beginning, gravity just works so much differently for ships in space. The bombs pour out of that hold like the Imperial ship has a stronger gravitational influence on them than, say, the ship they are already in. Not to mention all the gravity issues inside the ship itself, the pilot kicking the ladder to get the remote control to fall down to her. As soon as I recognized all of the nouns should have been behaving differently in a zero-G environment, I just so wanted to be a science advisor on this set, or at least for them to have hired one. Well, we're dealing with a situation where they've perfected the art of faster-than-light travel, so maybe space in this galaxy far, far away just behaves differently. Cool it was to see Yoda again, and the standoff on the planet's surface, including Luke's projection, and oh hell yeah, the Vice Admiral's power play. As reveals go, that one was intense. Again, if the big question going into this episode seems to be who the hell is Rey, then to get smacked across the head with the jaw-dropping reveal of Vice Admiral Holdo's sacrifice is incredible. Truly epic and a seriously fun ride. Other than that, lots going on, so kind of a light installment this time, progress-wise, but I do hope your holidays are happy ones, and that 2018 treats you kindly. Thank you so much for checking in on my video cataloging project. You can check out my catalog listing along with audio links at videofuzzy.blogspot.com and past episodes of this podcast at Apple Podcasts and videofuzzy.libsyn.com. Feedback is always appreciated, and you can contact me through my blog or podcast sites or through my Video Fuzzy page on Facebook. For Video Fuzzy, I'm Terry J. Amon. Happy viewing.
It might be amazing, it might just be scuzzy. We'll find out together on Video Fuzzy.